Good evening, afternoon, night, morning, wherever you find your way to watch or listen to this podcast. It's me, Omar, again, joined by a familiar face, both in my life and on this podcast, and also two new faces who all three folks I'm very excited to have on the podcast. We have Greg Barry, my friend from ever since middle school, Air Force Academy graduate, and Service Academy football fan, currently living in Dayton, Ohio. And that's going to be pertinent to our topic today. And we're joined by Alex Shear and AJ Ruffing. I hope I got the pronunciations right.
Spot on, man.
Awesome. Okay. Of the CSC podcast. And these guys have probably the best podcast in regards to MAC football. So gentlemen, before we begin, does anyone have anything to begin with?
No, thank you for having us. I
Yeah.
know that we're excited to share our thoughts, opinions on bowl games. I appreciate the Ohio University bowl championship T-shirt that you're rocking over there. Great to see the Bobbies win that bowl game. That was a thriller, and we're just glad that the MAC is the official Bowl Challenge Cup champion for the 2022 bowl season. So good times for the Mid-American Conference right now.
Yeah, I totally agree. Going to the game, it was a great game. It was electric, honestly. I was a Bobcats fan for the day. I asked my girlfriend for the paw print shirt because I thought it was cool, and I didn't know what else to ask for Christmas, so got me the paw print shirt. So I wore it, and we were supposed to sit on the Ohio side, but my mom wanted to sit on the seat backs and not on the steel benches at Arizona Stadium. So we sat with a bunch of Wyoming fans. So we had to continue the act, but I guess I'll continue to be an Ohio fan. But yeah, just it's a great bowl season. And of course, Greg, the Air Force Academy, being the only academy sadly in a bowl game, represented the troops well. Yeah.
Yeah, the only opportunity for the Service Academy, Air Force is coming back on top. So
Sure.
I'll brag on it this year.
Sure. We talked about this off air. I live in Colorado Springs now, 20 minutes from the academy. So I was able to cover the Air Force Colorado State game this year and had a blast there. And then I went to Army Navy as well up in Philly. My sister-in-law goes to Navy. So it was one of those things where we had to take that opportunity and go. But talking about, it was fantastic watching Air Force play. So this year I was able to watch all three service academies play within 3 weeks of each other, which was really, really cool. But yeah, as you know, the Academy Stadium it's different. We'll put it that way. It's something like I've never seen before. It's literally built deep into the ground. It's below 25. Like it's something, but we had an absolute blast. The people were great. So we had a lot of fun and watched them get a nice victory that night.
It's great. No, it's definitely I don't know what it was built Cold War era almost, so steel and concrete and slowly doing renovations. But when you see it full, some of those bigger games, the Service Academy games or like graduation, it's a pretty unique arena. So
sure, I'll be covering more games next year as we've talked to the SID there, and he goes, anytime you want to come out, let me know. So it'll be fun. We're excited to do more coverage there.
Yeah, for sure. I know Greg and I are in preliminary plans for the Air Force Army game next year, and
I'll be there.
Mile High. So first Air Force game since at Denver since the late '60s.
Mm-hmm.
So should be a fun time.
Yep, I plan on being there as well.
Okay, absolutely. It's a great time. It's good that they're treating the Air Force Army rivalry with due respect, putting at neutral sites. I'm a huge neutral site fan, unlike a lot of people, but. Yeah. So I guess that's why we're here talking bowl games too, I guess, with our main topic. So last week, kind of shocking news out of nowhere. Some, I guess, what was it? Organizers of a bowl game in Cincinnati, the Cincinnati Chili Bowl, announced that they're going to conduct a feasibility study for a bowl game to be aired on the CW network, which I love it because a bowl game not being aired on cable, that's a throwback to like 1985. What's not to love about it? A bowl game in Cincinnati. And I just want to know your guys' opening thoughts, Greg, with you being an Ohio resident, and Alex and AJ with you being Ohio native and residents.
I'll go last. So yeah, please jump in first, guys.
So AJ and I have very differing opinions on this. I'm all for as many bowl games as you can get to a degree. I think I think Ohio. We've seen many different bowl games come through Ohio. We've had the Glass Bowl. We've had I believe it's the Aviation Bowl that Dayton hosted for like 2 years. So we've seen different games come through Ohio. It would be nice to have one as like a permanent staple. We Northern games work. We see the Quick Lane Bowl, obviously in Detroit, that is indoors. We do, however, see the bowl game at the baseball stadium outdoors. I mean, so we see these games and they work outdoors in northern environments. In Cincinnati, it doesn't get that cold in early to mid-December that quickly. Obviously, I say that and with a big grin on my face, considering the negative temperatures we experienced here right at Christmas, the negative 10 degrees. But I really think something like, doing a bowl game in Cincinnati would be huge. We were down there for Miami versus Cincinnati in football this year, down at Paycor. And while the turnout wasn't the best for Miami, the way I look at it is the Miami fans are protesting not getting to play a rivalry game in their home stadium anymore. Cincinnati gets to play it at Nippert Stadium when they're the home team, and then Miami plays that game at Paycor Stadium when they're the home team. So they have to get on the bus, go an hour 15 minutes to be the home team in a rivalry game in the visiting team's city. And so for me, I view that as fans protest that a little bit. It's not a true road game for Cincinnati. They just get to hop over a few streets for a game. So I think that a bowl game could be very successful, and you could see fans come out for something as unique as it is. And Cincinnati Chili, that's a staple, right? We've got Skyline, we've got Gold Star. Those are very popular things down in Cincinnati. Like them or not, that's what they are.
Sure. Okay, that's fair.
And it's not really chili. And I feel very Ohio saying that. We all know this, that it's not really chili. But I really think that a bowl game in Cincinnati, Ohio, or in Ohio in general, could be very successful if done the right way.
Yeah, Alex mentioned we're kind of on different ends on this. And I look at it as, I go back to that Miami-Cincinnati game. There were more fans that traveled to Arizona to watch OU than traveled just 20 minutes down the road or however far Oxford is to Cincinnati to watch that game. There was no Miami fans there. And I think, too, when it comes to the Mid-American Conference, with the exception of the Quick Lanes Bowl, I think fans would want to travel somewhere a little bit warmer for Christmas. I don't think they're going to want to go down to Cincinnati and spend their holidays down in Cincinnati watching a bowl game in the cold. Detroit gets away with it because it's a dome. But yeah, that's why they go out west. That's why they go to the Bahamas. They're in Arizona, they're in Idaho, even though Idaho's a little-ish warm and cold, but then you go to the Bahamas and whatnot. So I think those are bigger draws and more money for the conference. I don't know if just going to Cincinnati would bring the Mid-American Conference a ton of money because everybody could be there. Yeah, it may bring fans from Michigan down. I don't know, but I think fans prefer to go west or far south to watch their teams play over the holidays. So Cincinnati could do it. I mean, it wouldn't. They have the facilities, they have the infrastructure, but it's one of those things too. We look at Cincinnati hosts a game, then I think Indianapolis should host one before Cincinnati. Honestly, having gone to many bowl game or many championship games in Indianapolis and having grown up in Indiana, Indy does probably one of the best jobs in the country when it comes to big games like that. Super Bowls that went to that, Big Ten championships, things like that, the NCAA championships. They can do it all. So if I was going to put a bowl game somewhere, I think I would go Indy over Cincinnati by a long shot. But I think they also on the other side, they rather go west where it's a little warmer out.
It's an interesting point to talk about traveling fans. Cincinnati wants to be a sports city. They have people showing up for the Bengals. You have this new stadium, TQL Stadium for FC Cincinnati, that you have fans going that don't know anything about soccer, which, maybe that's the new wave in America. That's a new podcast. You could talk about that, Omar. So the city itself is energetic about these sports. I love the stadium. It opened a year and a half ago, May 2021, fits 26,000 people, all this parking underneath. It's right in the heart of the city, where you walk 5 minutes and you got bars, you got pubs, you got restaurants. It's a fun environment. It's new. There's a, fun standing area for normally the home fans for FC Cincinnati. So the location itself, if it's TQL Stadium, I think it's great. How do we entice people to show up? Maybe, you have these more outlandish bowls, the Duke's Mayo Bowl, where it's dumping mayo and mayo's given out, or all the different foods at the Cheez-It bowls. Can we get a Ohio chili on Cheez-Its? Is that allowed? I think if there's going to be a bowl game there, especially on a unique network, they're going to have to try and be a little more outlandish to recruit fans to show up, and it could be pretty unique. But I'm limited in my exposure, but I think they'd have to make it pretty fun and enticing for fans to come to.
I agree in terms of the fun aspect, because I feel like the bowls that people love the most are the food bowls, where people are getting stuff dumped on them, whether it's mayonnaise or the fries with Frank Solch in his second to last year final bowl win, got the fries dumped on him. So I feel I don't know how many coaches would agree to having chili dumped on them. But if you throw in charity, charity like the mayonnaise bowl, like the Duke's mayonnaise bowl does, and then maybe it entices the coaches, and we get a chili dump for sure. I like the point about the stadium, about it being a fun environment, because I feel if you have a bowl game, the environment kind of has to make up for it as well. I heard, and I'm sure you guys heard as well, Alex and AJ, about the Camellia Bowl, how Montgomery really did not. They just hosted a game. They didn't host a bowl experience. They hosted a game. And if Cincinnati does that, then I think the Chili Bowl just becomes another bowl game. But if it it encapsulates all that Cincinnati is, even though whatever it is, I've never been there. But if it encapsulates all that Cincinnati is, then it has a chance to really leave a mark on the industry.
So to your point on all that Cincinnati is, so I grew up a big Cincinnati Reds fan. So I've spent a lot of time down in Cincinnati at Great American Ballpark, and just that whole area. And they have put a lot of money, time, effort into really making that sports area, that sports complex.
There's 3 or 4 complexes right there.
Yeah, it looks beautiful. You've got the ice arena, you've got Great American Ballpark, you've got Paycor Stadium, and then you've got TQL Stadium just right down the road. So, and then you've got Nippert Stadium right on campus, 5 minutes away. So, you just got all these great venues. And so to entice fans, to get people excited to be at these things, I remember I was at Reds opening day 2019. And for anybody who knows baseball, that Cincinnati Reds being the first game of the year is a staple. That is a very common thing. They've only not played the first game of the year at home, something like 6 times in 153 years history. So it's a very rare thing for the Reds to not be the first game of baseball. And it's a party. We've seen pictures and stuff from all over, first games of the year, whatever. Cincinnati has done an excellent job of making it a party now. And that's even despite how terrible the Reds have been. That's I can admit that freely. But I think Cincinnati has done such an excellent job. Now, my concern, however, is the MAC has 2 or 4 guaranteed bowl games: the Bahamas Bowl, the Idaho Potato Bowl, the Arizona Bowl, and the Quick Lane Bowl. Those are 4 guaranteed bids. And then they get 2 bids from, I think it's 7 bowl games. Yeah, seven other bowl games: the Lending Tree Bowl, Myrtle Beach, New Mexico, the Camilla Bowl, the Cure Bowl, and the Boca Raton Bowl. Obviously, the MAC was in the Boca Raton and the Camilla Bowl this year. My concern is, due to the power structure and the nature of college football, would the MAC be able to field enough teams to fill that bowl game, unless it was a guaranteed game? Because right now, the way it is, you look at schools like Kent State, who they'll schedule 3 Power 5 programs in their out of conference schedule. And usually they'll come into conference play 1-3. So you can't drop too many games in conference play and still make a bowl game. So I think it's tough. There is that downside that I see, but I'm all for adding a bowl game in Cincinnati, a great sports city, mostly a baseball city. but they're very, very quickly shifting to becoming a football city.
Absolutely.
And I think one thing that might be interesting too, we talked about trying to make the bowl game fun. That's a part of it, but you also kind of look at it like, okay, they played a game in Fenway Park this year, or they used to play it at they played a game at Wrigley Field, I think, a couple of years ago. I think the history of the stadium brings a huge impact into that also, because it's unique. You know, once a year you're going to see a baseball game or a football game at Fenway. You know, then the other bowl games like the Duke's Mayo Bowl, the Cheez-Its, they have the antics that add on that maybe supplement that history. But then you want to do something cool, something unique. The history of the stadium. I mean, it's not Paul Brown Stadium anymore, or it's TQL is brand new. I don't know what the history is there. So I think that might be a huge deterrent also, because what's going to draw them there? Because, like, for example, I went to Colorado State a couple of weeks ago for a basketball game. They have their Hall of Fame in there. I had no idea half these people even coached or played at Colorado State. Some of the big names, the Earl Bruce's, the Becky, what's the name? The basketball coach, Becky.
I forget.
The woman's basketball coach.
Yeah.
She went to Colorado State. So I think things like that, having access for fans to see the history of the stadium is a huge draw, because you get that at Fenway, you get that at Wrigley especially. And so I think that's something Cincinnati would have to take into consideration as well. And not just a Super Bowl runner-up banner, if that exists.
Right. No, I mean, you're speaking about the history of the stadium and potentially the teams there. FC Cincinnati has been in, the Major League Soccer League for 4 years, and before that, they were in this lower tier American soccer. So it's the team is brand new, the stadium is brand new, and so I think they're trying to get this newer crowd there. Inside the stadium, you have pubs, you have this whole craft beer area. It's cheap, it's Ohio beer, so so I think it's a newer.
Careful what you're saying about Ohio beer now.
Well, I like it. Rheingeist, if I'm paying $9 for a beer at a game, anywhere else at a big stadium, that's $20. So
oh yeah, easy.
So right. And sponsors and stuff, I don't know how that works, but yeah, there's no history there. But the stadium is more vertical. It's a soccer stadium, 26,000 people. We saw, I think, the New Mexico Bowl is pitiful. How many people were there, Omar? Maybe you could speak to.
Whoa.
On TV, when you see 2,000-3,000 people barely, and
that's not true. That's like, I think that had a pretty fair turnout. I think the New Mexico had like their matchup this year. Like other years, I don't mean to pick on the MAC, but years when you have like Central Michigan, San Diego State, but that's all I'm gonna say about that.
Well, we want the players and the teams to enjoy the bowl game too. So how do we pack the stadiums? It being vertical, I think it feels more full, even with less fans there. So again, it's louder, it's a different environment. But how do we get people there other than chili?
I mean, you could have a chili off. I think that'd be kind of cool. Get some, that would be, get the teams involved. I mean, but it's a lot more than that, right? It's, the kids are, you've got a lot of the teams do the stuff with the local children's hospitals, and they do a lot of like outreach as well. Cincinnati has, I think, the second largest children's hospital in the state of Ohio, outside of Children's in Columbus, Ohio, or the nationwide children's hospital in Columbus. Dayton, it's not close, but it's a 30-40 minute drive. You've got, Wright-Patterson. So there's some cool historical things you can do there.
Air Force Museum.
Yeah. There's obviously opportunities. The Chili Bowl, calling it the Chili Bowl makes sense. I mean, it's gimmicky, but you're not going to call it the Cincinnati Tiger Stripes Bowl. Like you're not going to call it the Cincinnati Mustache Bowl. If you're going to call it something, it's going to be called the Cincinnati Chili Bowl, because that just makes the most sense for that city. Or the River Bowl. You could even go the River Bowl.
Yeah.
You got to tie it to the city, and Cincinnati is known for Cincinnati chili and being on the Ohio River, and not even really being on the Ohio River. It's Cincinnati and chili.
I think the fun part is Lexington, an hour away, Louisville's hour and a half. And so, we have Kentucky. How do we get their fans involved too? It's huge populations. Instead of people just traveling down, it's, more people traveling up as well. Nashville's 4 hours, easy drive. So,
yeah. I mean, there's so much there's opportunities there.
Mhm.
Yeah, I totally agree. With all those points, I want to go back to the history point. And maybe this part of our discussion won't be as long, but what would you guys think about this game being hosted at Nippert instead? Because I'm a fan of Nippert Stadium. I think Nippert Stadium is a capsule back to, say the 1920s and 30s. Do you think that would add, I guess, a better flair, better fan experience than TQL Stadium?
I think if you're going to host a bowl game, this bowl game should actually be at Paul Brown or Paycor. And nothing against Nippert, nothing against TQL. This is a football game. You need to host it in the most historical venue in Cincinnati. That is what is now formerly known as Paul Brown Stadium. You could maybe pull something cool and try to host it at Great American. Great American's a very small ballpark. We saw the sidelines for Louisville, Cincinnati this year, and they were both shared the same sidelines. There wouldn't be room for a sideline in Great American. So I think you have to host it in the most well-known venue. And I think that's Paul Brown, because for a couple of reasons. They have the infrastructure in place to handle a mass amount of fans. That is number one. They're the largest stadium. I think they seat 64,000 people. I could be very wrong on that.
66.
66. Okay. So they had the infrastructure in place to host 50,000 plus people. Now, are there going to be 50,000 plus people there? Probably not. But I think if you're gonna make this a bowl game where you want the fans and you want the attendance, make it a MAC versus a Big Ten game, like what the Quick Lane Bowl should be. The Quick Lane Bowl hasn't had a Big Ten team in it in years. The MAC has played in 3 out of the last 4. So it's very much the opposite of what it should be. I think if you do this, you get 2 Big Ten, you get a Big Ten and a MAC team, have them ground and pound it in the cold, the way Ohio and Midwest football should be. And I think that would bring a lot of people in, especially a lower tier Big Ten team like a Purdue, who frankly they're excited to go to a bowl game. You're not going to get Ohio State to go to that bowl game. They're gonna laugh you off and say, yeah, try another team. You're not going to get Michigan to go to that bowl game, but you might get a Michigan State. You might get an Indiana. And I think that's a much more realistic thing. And it would make a better matchup for a MAC runner-up, a MAC, third place finisher as well.
Yeah, I don't think you could play it at Nippert either. The simple fact that if you're going to do it on a college campus, you probably don't want to do it during Christmas break. If you're wanting attendance, college kids are going to they'll pay $10 to go watch a football game, and that campus will be dead during Christmas break. So you definitely have to play it at Paycor. And I believe Nippert is in the middle of campus too, right? Yeah. So it would be a nightmare logistically getting there and getting things organized for outside fans. But yeah, you definitely have to play it at Paycor. We were there. Parking was a little bit of a hassle for us, to say the least.
It was a little bit of a hassle, but there was a lot. There were like 4 events going on in Cincinnati.
Yeah, it was kind of a pain. Yeah, it was. But nevertheless, I think infrastructure-wise, concession stand-wise, and I think overall TV appearance, it'll probably look a little bit better at Paycor.
All right. Yeah. Good point there. I think for me, the thing was, and I'm sure you guys can talk more about ticket allotments. That was the main concern about a big venue like Paycor Stadium. But I'm sure if they bring out the tarps, then ticket allotments won't be as much of a problem, and the schools are at less of risk of losing money. In terms of the tie-ins too, Alex, you mentioned the Big Ten, and I've had a couple of conferences in mind. I want to talk to you guys about conferences and teams. So first, I'm gonna bring Greg into this. What about a Mountain West tie-in, particularly aimed at the Air Force Academy, getting the Air Force Academy where you have them where you have Wright-Patterson Air Force Base nearby. You have that strong contingent of airmen and Air Force officers that would go to the game, and likely would probably sell out a 26,000 seat a TQL Stadium along with the MAC fan, the MAC representative fans. So what are your guys' thoughts on potential, clause bringing Air Force in if they're bowl eligible to the Chili Bowl?
I have thoughts, but I'll let you guys go first.
Yeah, I'll dive in quickly. People will drive down, watch parties for Air Force games, even in Dayton, Ohio. They're there. We have 10% of each graduating class coming out to Dayton, Ohio each year. So you have these young grads that'll go to a bowl game that's close. But Air Force football, I think, if it's this newer bowl game that's not as established and it's more of a risk, I think Air Force football is selfish and potentially will want, a more known bowl game. I don't know. I'm newer to college football and more, I've been listening to you a lot. So, but I think Air Force would, unless we're barely bowl eligible at the end of the season, if we get another 9 or 10 win season, I think they'd want something bigger. Yeah.
Really quick, Greg. Sorry to cut you out. Were you finished?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say about the established bowl point 2016, Air Force did go to the Arizona Bowl, which wasn't even nationally televised, was streamed on Campus Insiders, which doesn't exist anymore, and was syndicated. Like local TV stations bought rights to the game, to the Arizona Bowl. So I do understand that, especially now with like having, I think, like every year since 2019, every year since 2019, except for the pandemic year, has been a 10-year season for Air Force. I totally get that sentiment. So I'll just pass it back to you guys.
AJ, go ahead.
Yeah, I think, financially, I don't think it would make sense for Cincinnati to come, or for Air Force to come all the way to Cincinnati, because you look at the Mountain West, their fans are pretty loyal out in this part of the country, especially here in Colorado Springs and whatnot, especially Colorado Springs. So I don't know if they'd be willing to travel all the way to Cincy for a game. And, most of the service academies tend to play in a bowl game that is military related. The Lockheed Martin Bowl, I forget all of them anymore.
They had the Armed Forces Bowl,
Armed Forces
military
Bowl, things like that. So
yeah,
they're always tied into a military bowl. And for a brand perspective, that makes a lot more sense than playing in a Chili Bowl. Yes, Wright-Patterson is there, but that's only a small population of Mountain West fans and Air Force fans in general.
So knowing what I know about how the MAC has their tie-ins, the MAC already gets 2 guaranteed games against Mountain West schools in postseason, of their 4 or 5 guaranteed bowl tie-ins. Right now, the way it works is the MAC gets a matchup with Conference USA in the Bahamas Bowl. They get Idaho Potato Bowl against a Mountain West. They get Barstool, Arizona versus a Mountain West. Quick Lane should be against a Big Ten. Was against a Mountain West this year. Or no, it was New Mexico State's independent. But a West Coast or Western country team. The Lending Tree Bowl, when we qualify, has a Sun Belt team. And the Camilla Bowl is Sun Belt or the American Athletic. So I really think, and this is me being very selfish as a Mid-American Conference fan, I want the MAC to get a bowl game against a Power 5 program. We don't, as the Mid-American Conference, I think overall we get very disrespected nationally for bowl games, for whatever. And that's fine. I'm not going to sit here and dive into my long soliloquy about that. But I really think that every Group of 5 program or every Group of 5 conference should have a bowl tie-in to a Power 5. I think that should just be an automatic thing. And I know the Quick Lane Bowl is supposed to be that for the Big Ten and the MAC. It hasn't been that the last couple of years. Last year, it was Nevada from the Mountain West taking on Western Michigan. 2 years prior, it was Eastern Michigan taking on Pitt. So it just, we don't see it. And I think that needs to be restructured. And I think that if this were to be a Mid-American Conference tie-in bowl, the MAC should really step up and say, hey, we want it to be against a Power 5 program, ideally a Big Ten. Or the bowl organizer should say, hey, we want a Big Ten and we want a MAC team. Who you got? So I really think, as great as I love scheduling or the other Group of 5 programs and seeing those games, I think they're always great games. Group of 5 teams aren't going to get challenged unless they're getting the opportunity to play the Power 5 in postseason games. You get the early warm-up games, right? You get the games where it's Ball State goes down to Tennessee and gets waxed 77 to 10.
Parents weekends games so they can look
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, exactly. But I think now once the season is ended, you get a 9-3 MAC team takes on a 7-5 Big Ten team. That's a much more even game than Georgia taking on Kent State. You know, and I mean, and to all credit to Kent State, they played their hearts out and only lost that game by 17, which a lot of SEC teams can't say. But that's a very uneven matchup. Kent State wasn't bowl eligible this year. So I really think if you, and I thought the committee did an excellent job this year of bowl games of finding fairly even matchups. All the MAC games, with the exception of one, came down to like a single score. So I really thought they did an excellent job, but we need more of that. And it needs to also be with our Power 5 opponents, or else the divide's just going to keep swelling. It's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah, I mean, great points there. Honestly, it is a shame that, I mean, and I guess it's on purpose that the Big Ten has the quick lane bowl at the bottom of its barrel. So with a million teams that sends in year 6, like, that barrel is getting scraped from, and the quick lane bowl becomes a MAC versus an at large. So I get the sentiment there. I will say this as a purist, as a Rose Bowl lover and purist, I just love West versus Midwest matchups, and I mean as many of them as we can get as possible. I love it, honestly. Because I got to say, like, if we can't have a Pac-12 team versus a Big Ten team in the as the sun sets in the San Gabriel Mountains of the Rose Bowl, give me a Mountain West versus the MAC team as the sun sets and the overhang at Arizona Stadium creates shade over the field. It's a beautiful sight. It's not the Rose Bowl, but it's a beautiful sight. But I guess on this note, I'm kind of scared to bring up this conference, as a next tie-in, because it's a completely different direction. You guys can curse me out if you want to, but earlier today I wrote about the ASUN WAC. I'm going to say the A word, the ASUN WAC. If their ambitious plans of becoming an FBS conference come true, they're going to need a bowl game. And if no one else is interested in this upstart bowl game aired on CW between Judge Judy and How I Met Your Mother, then the ASUN WAC will surely take it first. So what are you guys' thoughts on potentially the ASUN WAC champion facing, say, maybe a MAC division champ or a third place finisher?
So I'll just kind of just start here real quick. I think, and you're going to get me on this tangent, so I blame you for this. I already think that we have too many teams in the FBS level. I think we were good at 120. You get 10 conferences, and I think what we need to do is we need to completely eliminate independence before we start adding more conferences. That's my first thought. I have very, very much in favor of conferences. But I also think you need to even the conferences out. I think we need to see, we go back down to 120 and we put 12 teams in 10 conferences. It's even. You base it regionally. We don't have a UCLA in the Big Ten. I understand there's a whole money aspect, and that's fine. But I'm going too far off of the question here. But I think that they should pump the brakes on it. But if they were to make it, I don't think it would be the worst thing if that was one of their bowl tie-ins, especially with it being a new game. If this was an older established game, you couldn't put in a new conference. If this was an older game, like if this was, I don't know, the Barstool Bowl or the Arizona Bowl, you can't put in the new conference. You can't put the new kid on the block in because there's traditions, right? And I read something earlier today is traditions is just peer pressure from dead people. And while that's true, there are certain traditions with bowl games that you have to uphold. And as we continue to see conferences completely break up and shake down and move, we're seeing a lot of traditions we love, like you mentioned the Rose Bowl, completely go out the window. And I think that's wrong. So I don't think you put the new kid on the block in an established game. A Chili Bowl, sure, let them get it, little spotlight on a national stage.
Sure. I mean, I would agree with that too. Putting him, that established bowl, everybody knows roughly who's going to play in that game yearly, what program is going to be there, well, at least what know the conferences. But yeah, you got to move the independents around to get them in conferences before. Like I grew up in Notre Dame country, and Notre Dame has to join a conference, or else they'll never win a damn thing in their entire existence. And so you have them. You have who else is an independent now? I lose track of them because it seems like they change every couple of years. But nevertheless, you got to play in conference play. It helps your bowl. It helps your school in general. Helps your notoriety. And then I don't know if anybody, you mentioned playing between Judge Judy and How I Met Your Mother or whatever. I don't know what kind of crowds are going to bring. I don't know if we're going to be sitting in a doctor's office watching college football. That's the thing too. What kind of crowd is that going to be bringing and playing on that channel? That's another tangent for a different time. But I definitely think you have to keep established teams, established programs in the main bowls. But yeah, why, if you're going to bring a new bowl game, why not, test the waters with a fairly new conference?
I agree. Oh, no, go ahead, Greg.
No, I bow out. My football knowledge is very limited. So
yeah, just look at after this podcast, just look up ASUN WAC FBS and just tell me your thoughts. I'm sure you'll think it's a dumb idea as well. But I'm hurt by the sentiment towards the independents as an Army fan, because we tried conference play a long time ago. It did not go so well.
That just means you got to get better.
Oh, we're better now. I mean, I've thought about honestly the max, like taking Army and UConn as football only members and like kind of creating like a great like kind of Northeast corridor, honestly, where it's like, in some years you have the MAC title game. Well, I guess it wouldn't work because like these are outdoor venues, but like at MetLife or like at Gillette, to like kind of cater to Buffalo, UConn, and Army. But I would love to see Army in the MAC. I miss seeing the MAC on Army's schedule, because I mean there's like a streak. It was like from 2005 to 2018. There was a MAC team on Army's schedule every single year, and we haven't had a MAC team since. We should have had one.
They played Ball State like 2 years ago.
Yeah, you played Ball State back in 2021.
Yeah.
Oh, 21.
Yeah,
we did. Oh, we
at
okay.
Ball
Yeah,
State.
I don't want to forget that one. Yeah,
that was family day.
I want to forget that one.
I went to Ball State. I transferred there in 2013. Army came that year, and then I think the year before that, Ball State went there. But yeah, they played. Was it 2020, 2021? Army Ball State played in Muncie.
Yeah, that was our first loss. You just brought back a bad memory because Christian Anderson was hurt and everything. So thank you guys for that. But
gotcha.
so point still stands. I guess going on to, I mentioned UConn, going on to the last school, I guess, as a sort of tie-in. What do you guys think about UConn? They're a team in a precarious position as an independent. And I know I'm opening myself up to more independent bashing, but what do you guys think about UConn? I mean, they have history in Cincinnati, being a member of the Big East and the American. It's it's not a ridiculous trip to ask. I mean, there's a lot of UConn fans in the New York City area who can catch probably a cheap flight from the greatest travel hub in the country to Cincinnati. So ease of travel is there. So what are you guys' thoughts on UConn as being a potential tie-in?
5 words: put them in a conference.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, UConn would be like, we talked about the Big East and the American Conference. They would be perfect in the American. Obviously, that's another story. But they could be a great Conference USA conference or football team. They could be phenomenal in that conference because the top 3 teams in that conference are fairly competitive, and they can compete with them. I mean, they came to Ball State this year, and Ball State beat them, but it was a fairly close game. I think Carson Steele went off and won it towards the end. But yeah, I think like a Conference USA would be a phenomenal fit for UConn.
Yeah, I think. Well, I was going to say, just to kind of tack on to that, I think if they made the poor decision to stay independent, I think that it would be a fine tie-in for them. You mentioned the history of their time being in the Big East, and just all that history that they do have. It would not be a terrible tie-in at all. I do think that of an independent program, that one would make sense, where they're just, hey, we have a contract if we qualify for whatever threshold. UConn, you mentioned is in an interesting spot. So I don't hate the idea. I think join a conference, you get so many more benefits of being a conference opponent rather than just an independent. And I know we talk about Notre Dame and, they get their TV contracts and whatever, and they make a lot of money that they don't have to share. And that's great for Notre Dame. UConn's not Notre Dame. UConn is a G5 school football wise for all intents and purposes. They don't get that same TV revenue. Sure, they don't have to share it with anybody, but cool, you don't have to share $250,000. Like, the MAC, the midweek games, each school gets something like $800,000 for the season because of the midweek games alone. So, like, sure, you're not sharing your money, but you're missing out on a lot of other money by not being in a conference.
Sure.
And that's just my thought.
And I can't imagine Jim Mora enjoys being independent either. With his football pedigree and where he's coaching when he's done, I'm pretty sure he'd enjoy conference play.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good point. I mean, I didn't even think about Jim Mora. I feel like Jim Mora, I didn't realize how old he was, but with his age, this kind of being like, I guess, a last destination for him. Well, that sounds very negative. Sort of like a retirement job for him. That's better. But yeah, like, I mean, yeah, points taken. Indeed. I mean, in this changing landscape too, with where it's incentivized to be in a conference in the 12-team playoff, not like the 14 playoff where it's like, Army, UConn can stay independent, and they can play for bowls, hope for an at-large bowl spot. But now, if you're in a conference, if with especially the playing field like being more level in the group of 5, the incentive is totally there to join a conference. So, yeah, like that is all I have. That's all I had on the docket for this podcast. Do you guys have anything else to add?
No, nothing on our end. We appreciate you having us on, and wanted to say thank you and good luck to you guys and your schools during basketball season. It's we're conference play, as big as we are on conference play, just started, and the MAC just kicked off men's games last night. AJ's Ball State beat my Toledo squad last night 90-83, and we have the women's games going on tonight. So a lot of great conference play. Already looking forward to March Madness.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sorry, my bad, EJ.
There you go. Yeah, no, absolutely. We thank you, appreciate it. We'll have to be in touch next year for Army Air Force up in Denver. So I'll be there covering the game. We'll be on the field, but nevertheless, we'll have to try to reach out and meet up.
Well, you better be wearing blue, right? Not gray.
No.
I can't wear anything. I have to be neutral in the media box. So
all right.
So
Air Force.
well, I'm more of a Navy guy just because my sister-in-law goes there. Our friends were coming out for that game. Our friend who's coming out for the game. He played at Army back in the day, so he's bringing my parents out and a bunch of other people. But I'll be neutral just because, I mean, it's not Navy playing, so I just said I'm on their side for the next 2 years. So.
All right.
It's okay. I mean, this time around they won't be as lucky. I mean, they had the second coming of Mike Allstott at fullback.
Yeah.
I mean, it's okay. Brad Roberts isn't there anymore. I'm ready, but yeah, no, we'll have to keep in touch. Yeah, Greg, anything else to add?
I'll just blindly be hoping for the Chili Bowl. So, I can go down and hit my second bowl game ever, maybe.
There you go.
Yeah, exactly. Bowl games are for the people, yeah. So with that, thank you everyone for watching and listening. Until next time, everyone, peace, love, and soul.